Alright, hello and welcome to the video. This is the third video in the kind of how to win friends and influence people series. We are going over the second chapter, and the general idea of this chapter is there's only one way to get anybody to do anything, and that is the title of the video, and that way is to make them want to do it. So obviously you can make someone want to do something by putting a gun to their stomach and saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to pull the trigger. Or by using your authority and saying, look, you have to listen to me, I'm your superior, I have a higher role at this company, or so forth. But the problem with these methods is when you use violence or authority or any sort of way to make them do something they don't really want to do, your influence your influence is gone as soon as you are. So if I force someone to do something, the second I turn my back and leave, they're not going to be doing they're not going to do that anymore. So if you really want a lasting impact on someone, you have to do it in a way that makes them want to do it whether you're there or not. And one excellent way to do this is to instill pride in what they're doing. For example, there was a janitor that wasn't doing very well, and people were saying like, oh, you're trash at your job. They would throw stuff around like, clean this up, like blah, blah, blah. But then one superior would recognize that's a few times where he would do a good job on something, and he would call it out, say that's a wonderful job, and he wouldn't just do it in front of him, he'd do it in front of the colleagues that were making fun of him. And then over time, after building up compliments and compliments, the janitor began to take pride in the good work that he did. And because of this kind of sense of pride that he had in it, he began to do better and better. And then even the people that were initially making fun of him and saying he wasn't very good at his job began to respect the work he was doing. So we have these kind of layers of desire, and obviously this order changes per person, but I just put them down. These are the ones that they have in the book. So obviously health and the preservation of life, that's like the number one thing. If you're drowning, the only desire you have is for air. Everything else does not matter. But the thing is, a lot of these things are generally people have. So generally, unless you're sick or in danger, you have this. Most people are able to eat. Most people are getting able to sleep. And when they're not, they go to sleep generally. So I'm checking off the ones that are usually supplied. Money, okay, money, maybe everyone wants more money. But money's not something that you can give away just freely, unless you're obviously insanely rich, but I doubt most of us are. But life in the hereafter, that's also not something you can really give that much. That's not, well, you can't give. That's not up to you. And then sexual gratification, that's generally not something you're supplying either. So I'm gonna do a circle, unless it's your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, or maybe not. But the well-being of our children, obviously another thing we desire, but once again, not the easiest to give, so I'll put another circle there. But then this feeling of importance. The amazing thing about this is you can give people feelings of importance and it costs you virtually nothing. All you have to do is recognize this fact, that every person is our superior in some way. In some way, every single person that watches this video is better than me at something that they do. And in order to give them a feeling of importance, what I would do is look through what that person is, what that thing that they do that I wish I could do as well as them, and then acknowledge that and tell them about it. Like, wow, like, you are so charismatic with people. You go and everyone is in the crowd, they all listen to you and you speak so well. Like something like that, I could be like, wow, I wish I had that as well. It's very admirable that you have that. And when you put yourself in the position of being like, wow, like you have this talent or this thing about you that I admire, it makes people feel really good about themselves. And the best thing about it is it doesn't cost you a thing. And that's the power of this eighth desire that people have, is it's something that you can fulfill. And if you do fulfill it, people are gonna wanna be around you. They're gonna, like, people crave this desire. A lot of times people don't get it in today's life. They're unappreciated in their work. They have managers that maybe don't appreciate them. They're maybe, what I'll go over later, their family takes them for granted, all the things they do for them, things like this. But if you're the person that goes around and gives people this feeling of importance, it's wildly powerful. So another cool thing, there's this quote, if you tell me what gives you a feeling of importance, I'll tell you what you are. And the idea behind that quote is that different people find that feeling of importance in different ways. And how you find that feeling of importance is very characteristic of who you are. So the example in the book was, you have John D. Rockefeller, obviously insanely rich guy, but he found his feeling of importance by giving back to the community. So he would build schools and build hospitals in areas he was never going to visit because, it gave him that feeling of importance to help these people out. But then there's also this other person, Dillinger, who was a bank robber, a killer, and generally what people would consider a bad person. But he found his feeling of importance by being the #1 most wanted. And when he would go up to people when he was on the run and be like, hey, I'm Dillinger, I'm the #1 most wanted, I'm not gonna hurt you. But he would tell people that because he had pride in being the #1 most wanted. And that's one thing that really differentiated these two people, was because what gave them that feeling of importance. So I think it's a cool question to ask yourself, what gives you that feeling of importance in your life, and kind of reflect on that a little bit. And then the next quote I have here is, I have yet to find a person who did not do better work and put forward greater effort under a spirit of approval than they would ever do under a spirit of criticism. And that's basically, people flourish under praise, and criticism is really hurtful. It's the quickest way to break someone's spirit and make them no longer interested in doing something. And if you want to bring someone up and get them to be more confident in what they're doing and do it in a better way, you have to try to find as much appreciation and approval, and just help them grow and give them this, you're doing this great, and just focus on the good. And they're going to want to continue building. That's going to want them to, they're going to have pride in it, and they're going to want to continue growing, instead of criticism where it brings them down and makes them, they're like, why do I do this? Every time I do this, I get criticized for it. So just a cool quote I saw. And then speaking to this lack of appreciation that I was talking about earlier, is that the #1 cause of divorce, when they asked people why they divorced, the answer they got was a lack of appreciation. And that's because we generally sometimes take for granted the things that are done over and over. So for example, one of the examples in the book was a wife would cook a meal every single day for her husband and her family, and they never said anything about it. And she, over 20 years, didn't get compliments, didn't get appreciated for what she did. So they said this wasn't a true story, but it gives an example. They said she put hay on the table, and then they were like, what the heck? And she's like, wow, I wouldn't have known. You didn't in 20 years say anything different than if I was feeding you hay. And it's just kind of this idea that, appreciation goes a long way, and kind of to look for the things people do sometimes that maybe you enjoy and you're happy that they're doing them, but you don't tell them enough, and it can be really, really good for them to hear that once in a while. And then the last takeaway is that these compliments, they have to be sincere. They can't be flattery. People can see through flattery, and they're gonna feel like you're trying to get something out of them. And that's why I really like this technique, where you find something you genuinely wish you had about that person. But if you're just telling them, oh, you're so cool, you're so pretty, blah, 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 people can see through that. And the whole, a huge part of the book is that you have to change the way you think and change the way you're acting. And you have to do it from a sincere place where it's selfless. And you should be doing this not only to the people you may want to influence, but to everyone, because it's going to make them happier. And you should do it for the purpose that you can create joy and happiness in a better life just for other people, because simple things can make huge differences. A sincere appreciation is remembered. For example, I still remember something someone told me 5-6 years ago that has to them it was probably nothing. Basically, when I was younger, I was a little insecure about the acne that I had, and I was talking to someone about it, and all they said was, oh, it's really not that bad. And that's a pass-off thing. It's they probably just said it, they didn't think any of it, but it made me feel so much better about myself and so much more confident in the acne that I had. And I really appreciated them for it, and I still appreciate it to this day, even though I don't really have acne as much anymore. But just the idea that you're gonna go through a life, go through a day, and if you tell people things and you make this becomes a habit, people are gonna remember you years and years down the line, and you're gonna make them feel better, not just right when you say it, but long times in the future. So powerful stuff, and I hope you got something out of this video. Hope you appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.